Today's daf is daf ches, and we started the nusach habrachos on the bottom of daf zayin or beis. My mevorech Om Rabbi Yehuda. The first bracha is bracha to Hashem l'kein melech haolam. Here on daf ches, shakol bara lichvodo. Everything was created for the sake of Hashem, and this is what we call a bracha ktsar. It's a short bracha, and therefore it doesn't end with its own chasima and its own bracha. And we're going to see the same thing for the second bracha. Then we get to the third bracha, which is a bracha arucha, and therefore requires a chasima. So in this first bracha, we're thanking Hashem for creating everything. And oseh shalom ubareas hakol. We say that God, of course, is the creator of everything and the creator of man. Second bracha, bracha to Hashem l'kein melech haolam, yotzer ha'adam. And now we're speaking about the creation of man specifically, not as he's included in the entire Bria. And we're speaking about Adam, who was created before Eve. And we'll see that Yetziras HaAdam took place before Chava was created, before the Nekeva was created. And therefore this bracha is not considered what we call a bracha al inyan hazivug, because like the first bracha, which is bara hakol bara lichvodo, the second bracha Yotzer Adam, is both these brachos are on the klaliistic creation. They're not related specifically to marriage. And then we get to the third bracha. The third bracha is already zivug ha'adam v'ishto, and the nusach is Asher Yisrael places Elkeinu bracha to Hashem Elkeinu melech haolam Asher yatzar es hadam b'tzalmo. Now here there are different kirsos. Some have ubitzelem dmus tavnitzo hiskin lo mimenu binyan adayad. Others have Tzelem dmus tavnitzo as a description of B'tzalmo, and v'hiskin lo mimenu binyan adayad. Now v'hiskin lo mimenu is a reference to the tzlaosav of man, from which God created Chava. And the beginning of this bracha is the concept of Tselem Elokim, that God created man in his image. And we're not talking about a physical image. God doesn't have a physical image, but we're talking about the tzuras hanefesh shel ha'adam. V'hi netzeles mikvod habore. Hanefesh hi b'tzalmo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're talking about the soul of man, not the physical body of man. And once again, the word tavniso here does not refer to the tavnis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because God has no dmus, no tavnis, but tavniso means the tavnis ha'adam. The Ritva writes that B'tzalmo is the tzelem dmus tavniso shel adam. And the Radbaz writes that B'tzelem dmus habore yisbarach tavniso shel adam. And it's all based on the pasuk Vayivra Elokim es ha'adam b'tzalmo b'tzelem Elokim bara otso. And this bracha, number 3, ends with a chasim bracha to Hashem yotzer ha'adam. And that's because this is a bracha rucha that requires a chasima, and there's more than one motif here, because we're talking about the tselem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're talking about the tselem and the dmus and the tavnus of Adam, and we're talking about the fact that God created Eve from the tsela of Adam. Then we're up to number 4, and this is a bakasha and a tefillah on the building, the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, sos tasis v'sagel akara. So we're talking about Yerushalayim as an akara, like a barren woman, desolate, mibli bonel, and brings sason and gila through kibbutz bonel, by ingathering the exiles of Socha, And this is all based on psukim. For example, Yeshayahu Hanavi says, "Uberachmim gedolim hakabtseich," and it says, "Pitzchi rina v'tzali." So these various psukim in Yeshayahu that prophesy at the end of days and our return and rebuilding of Yerushalayim, they're all about sason v'simcha. And here we have to know that Yeshayahu says, "Sos asis ba kechasan yechaim pe'er v'chechala ta'ada kelel." So when we recite these brachas on chasa v'kala, we're going to use sos tasis, which is the language of bringing back Klal Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael at the time of Kibbutz Panea. And every marriage is sort of a microcosm of the ultimate marriage between Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we're up to the fifth bracha, Sameach T'samach Re'em Ahuvim. Again, we're talking about a tefillah, a bakasha that the chassan and kala should be smechim ba'atzlacha kol yomeim. And they are called the chassan kala Re'em Ahuvim, Sha'ovim Zetzeh, Kisamecha Yitzircha B'gan Eden Mikedem, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Pamalia Shel Malo and Mitzameach Adam Arishon with Chava, when they're in Gan Eden, Mikedem, as the pasuk says, Vayita Hashem Elokim Gan Eden Mikedem, Vayosem Shom Es Ha'odam Asher Yotzar. And some say the word Mikedem means Tzad HaMizrach is always called Kedem, that the Gan Eden was in Mizrach Shel Olam. Some say Mikedem means that the Gan was Natua, it was already prepared, lush and fruitful, even before Adam Arishon came into Gan Eden. And now we're up to the sixth bracha. Now the sixth bracha is a separate entity. That's why it's Poseach B'Barach. All the other brachas that we had have no psicha B'Barach simply because of the halach of Smucha L'Chaverta. But the last bracha that stands on its own, and we'll see if there's no Panim Chadosh, we'll recite the last bracha. Therefore, it deserves its own independent nusach, which means a psicha B'Barach. And here it's a birchas hasheva, as opposed to the previous bracha, which is a little bit similar, which is a birchas hatefila. Here we're talking about a birchas hasheva for the chasnus ish ve'isha, for the simcha and the chedva. Sher baras ason v'simcha chasam v'kala gila rina ditza v'chedva av v'ach v'shalom v'reis. Simcha is something that's mischadeshes midvarim shekfar hayu kodem. So you had something before, and now there's a chidush that's extended and built on what you have, and that brings you to simcha. Gila is a davar mischadish achshav. It's something brand new. Simcha includes olam haba. Gila is only olam hazeh. And this is based on the Gra's commentary on Mishnah. Now, according to the Zohar, in Parshas Truma, this bracha has 10 lishonos. Let's just count it up. So, son was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. And those 10 are connected to the Asar Mamara Shebahem Nivra Ha'olam. Now, the question is whether Chasam V'Kala is a separate number. Ramban actually has all told 12 Lashonos. That's not going to fit with the Zohar that we mentioned. And then we end, and this is what makes it into a bracha arucha, with a bakasha. Mehira Hashem Elokeinu yishama b'yarei Yehuda v'chutzos Yerushalayim. And we should quote a pasuk, Kol mitzalos chasanim yichupasam. Where's that pasuk? I think it's in the Yirmiyahu, but I don't find it right now. So we have here 5 kolos: kol sason, kol simcha, kol chasan, kol kala, kol mitzalos chasadim. And these are the 5 kolos. Gemara points out in Brachos Tavav that a kala besula zochel lekabel es elu chamisha kolos, v'kol anena misudas chos v'kal v'ena misamcham over v'chamisha kolos. And Rashi says, "Shariza mizalzel b'chamisha kol shenis baruch b'hem Yisrael." V'im misamcham zochel l'torah shenitna b'chamisha kol. And someone who is zocha in the chamisha kolos and is misameach chos v'kal, he's zocha to Torah, and that's called a midah keneged midah. Levi Ikol at Bei Rebbe, the Lula to Reb Shimon Brei. Levi was at the base Rebbe at the wedding of Reb Shimon, the son of Rebbe. Baruch Chamesh. They omitted Yotzer Adam. So you subtract 1 from 6 and you're down to 5. I guess because Yotzer Adam is not related to Simchas Chasam V'Kala per se. Rav Asi Ikol Bei Rav Ashi B'Lula de Marbrei. Rav Asi was at the house of Rav Ashi at the Chasen of Mar, his son, Ubarch Shis. They added a 6th bracha, Yotzer Ha'adam. So the Gemara tries now to analyze the machlokes as to whether or not Yotzer Ha'adam should be added here to the list of brachos. Lema b'haka mifli. And this is a machlokes in Rav and Shmuel in Masechet Eruvin Daf Yud Ches, whether Adam Rishon, at the beginning of his creation, was created with 2 faces, a male face facing forwards and a female face facing backwards. And then God splits them into 2. Or, no, God created from the get-go only man, just Adam. And then he created Chava from Adam. And from, I guess, the back of Adam. So in that sense, if God took a part of Adam and created Chava, it was a separate creation. The Mar Savar, according to Levi, he omitted Yotzer Adam Savar, Chado Yitzira Adam. Adam and Chava were created simultaneously with one creative act of a body that had 2 faces. And therefore we don't have a separate bracha for Yitziras Ha'adam Levado, but rather we go to the other brachas that indicate, like for example, Yotzer Adam, Asher Yotzar, and indicate male and female. But if only one being was created, not 2, so Levi says then there won't be a bracha of Yotzer Adam. Umar Savar, now we're up to Rav Asi, Shtei Yitziros Avod. From the get-go, God created not one man or one human being with 2 faces, male and female, but rather male and then subsequently female. As a separate creation, female was an independent creation. Therefore, we recite the bracha of Yotzer Adam on the creation of male, and then Asher Yotzar on the creation of female. So the Gemara says, lo. The Gemara rejects this opinion that Levi and Rav Asi are arguing about the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Kuli alma chadi yitzira hav. Everyone agrees that man was created with two faces as one creation. Marsavar, according to Rav Asi, who had a bracha of Yotzer Adam, added, the Basa Machshava Zlina. We follow the original plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that was to create two separate beings, a male and a female. Which means that the bracha of Yotzer Adam is on the bria of the Zachar alone, and then Asher Yotzar is on the bria of Nekeva, as a separate independent creation. Umar Savar, Levi, on the other hand, who omits Yotzer Adam, he holds Basar Maisad. We don't look at the Machshava of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We look at the end Maisa. They were created as one bria, both male and female. And therefore, we're not going to make a bracha of Yotzer Adam on the bria of male, but rather on the bria of both of them together. And that's the bracha of Asher Yotzar. I think there's a mistake here in the Masechet. I'm going to just make a note of this. Should say, no, just 1 second, maybe it's correct. Yotzer Adam and Asher Yotzar after. Okay. Umar Savar Basar Maisaz Lina. Okay then. Ihad Rabbi Yehuda Rami. Rabbi Yehuda presented what looks like a contradiction between two psukim, one in the first chapter of Bereshis and the other in the fifth. Vayivra ksiv vayivra l'kimes ha'adam b'tzalmo. Adam in singular. And we're talking about the male. And then it says ksiv, 5 chapters later, Zachar unekeva bara. They were created as one being, Zachar and Nekeva. Okay, so how do we reconcile these two psukim? The original plan was to create Zachar l'chud and Nekeva l'chud. Ulebasof nivra echad. At the end, God created one being that had two partsufim. Rav Ashi iklo lebei Rav Kahana. So Rav Ashi showed up in the house of Rav Kahana during a Simchas Nesuin. Yom HaKama, on the first day at the Sudas Nesuin Baruch Kulu, Rav Ashi was Mevarech all 6 Birchas Chasana, Mikan v'elech, from the second day until the balance of the 7 days. Ika Panim Chadoshos Baruch Kulu. If there was Panim Chadoshos, someone who was not there the previous day, or according to some Rishonim, he was not there at all, is then we Mevarech all the brachas. And that reflects what we saw in the previous Amud, Mevarchim Birchas Chasanim Kol Shiva, Vehu Shebo Panim Chadoshos. V'lo, if there are no Panim Chadoshos, it's not a new Simcha, it's Afuchi Simcha B'Almahu. It's again, we're just adding to the old Simcha, we're not creating a new Simcha. And therefore, he should only recite the following bracha, Mevarech Shehas Simcha B'Ma'ono. So this is at the time of Zimun, right before Birkas Hamazon. We recite the bracha of Shasimcha B'mona, Vasher Bara. After Birkas Hamazon, we'll recite the sixth of the Birkas Chasanim Asher Bara. Shiva V'yat Shloshim, after the 7 days of Mishta, up until the 30th day from the day of their wedding, and there are guests now at the Suda. Bein Amar Lahu Machmas Hilula, Ubein Lo Amar Lahu Machmas Hilula, Mevarech Shasimcha B'mona. So during the period from 7 to 30, after the Shiva Simon Mishta up to day 30 from the wedding, and there are orchim there at the Suda, and they're coming, I guess, to be Mechabe, the Chos and Vakal, participate in the Simcha. And whether the host said specifically, quote, Machmas Hilula, or he did not say Machmas Hilula, is Mevarech Shasimcha B'mona. Just the fact that the Chassan is there. Now, I'm not sure if you need both the Chassan and the Kala. So again, we're not going to be Mevarech Asher Bara even. Forget about Sheva Brachos. No Birchas Chasanim. It's only an addition to the Zimun. We're going to say Shasimcha B'ma'ona. Now, how do we say Simcha B'ma'ona if he didn't explicitly invite them for the purpose of Hilula? So we must conclude, and this is the Gaonim quoted in the Shita Mikbetz, that Stam Suda B'tot Shloshim Yom Hi Machmas Simchas HaChasim. Now, there are a whole bunch of issues about Shasimcha B'ma'ona. Do we need Asara? Do we recite it if the Chasan is Soed in B'nai Beso, or only if he's Soed with Orchim? And do we recite it outside of the Beis Chasanim? Then there's an issue here about whether you need Panim Chadoshos and whether or not this Simcha B'ma'ona is recited in the case of an Alman and an Almana. They both were married previously. And if so, do we recite it only on the first day or all 3 days of Simcha? Many, many issues about Simcha B'ma'ona in the poskim. Mikan v'yelech, after Shloshim, amalahu, then you could upgrade the Su'uda into a Suda Simchas Chos V'Kala if he says to the guests, Machmas Hilula, that I'm inviting you here because of the Simcha of the Nesuin. Is then after 30 days, and we'll see up to a year, we'll see that later, is Mevarech Shasimcha B'ma'ona. Elo, if there was never an indication that these people were being invited for the Simchas Chos V'Kala, lo, we leave out Shasimcha B'ma'ona after day 30. And the Gemara clarifies this. V'chi amalu machmas hilula ad emas. Okay, in a case where he did invite them specifically, telling them it's machmas simchas nesuin, up until what time? How far beyond the wedding can Amar Papi Mishvei de Rova ad Tresar Yarchishat? We'll give you 12 months from the day of your wedding. If you've already commemorated your second anniversary, then we don't recite Simcha B'ma'ona. The Gemara now asks, Ikara me emas. When is the beginning of the Simchas Chuppah so that you could be mavarch simcha b'mona. The Gemara assumed already that when you want to bring your children into the chuppah, there's already a preparation period, and that's the beginning of the simcha. There should be an additional bracha to the Shmona Esrei. Meyemas. Omer Papa Michiramu Siori Basinta. Once they take the Siorim and they start soaking it in water, and they do it with Tzarech HaChuppah, then you know they're not going to change their mind because the barley in the water is not going to last forever. Whereas is this so? V'amar Papa Iasik Liaba Bar Mar Brei Ubarich Mishas Erison. Those were Papa himself personally was Mishadich, a woman to his son Abba, and he recited the bracha Shasim Kumono already from the time of the Erison. We didn't have to wait all the way until he actually prepares for the chuppah. Shiny Rav Papa, this is a different case of Rav Papa marrying off his son. Nahavi Tarech, already from Shas Erison, all the tzarchei chuppah and the suda were already prepared. And once they started the preparation at the Erison for the Nesuin, for the chuppah, then that engenders a simcha, and therefore you could be mavarach shas simcha b'mon from the time of Erison. Ravina Yasik Leile, he's Mishadech, his son, to a woman, Bei Rav Chaviva, in the house of Rabbi Chaviva, Baruch, and they recited Shasim Chavimono Mishas Erison. Omar, he declared to explain why they recited Simcha Mono that early. Is Kimli Begavayu, I know about you guys that Lo Haji, you're not going to change your mind. You're going to definitely be Makayim the Shidduch. So therefore, already Shas Erison, the Simcha of Nesuin has already begun. You've already laid latent in the Erison is the Simcha of Nesuin. And therefore you can be Mavarech Shas Simcha B'monu. However, Lo Estaya Milsa, the Haji Bahu. Lo Estaya Milsa means it didn't come out the way they had planned. And Hajilu Chazru Bahem Eis Reb Chaviva. So it seems Lo Estaya Milsa, meaning that they had planned the wedding, but the wedding never actually took place. It sounds like from the Mefarshim that the father of the bride decided to back out. Rav Tachlifa Bar Marava, he's an Israeli Jew, Ikla leBavel, he came for a Sudas Netzu into Bavel, Ubarach Shis Arichasa, and he recited the 6 brachos of Birchas Chasan. And not only that, Arichasa means Herich after Birchas Hakol Barav Yoter Adam. He added and beefed up these 2 very short brachos. And Chasam Af Osam V'Bar, and he added a Chasim Bar. All these additions. But less Hilchus HaKavos, Gemara rejects it la halacha, but rather the 2 first short brachos are not going to be Chosmos B'Bar. Rabbi Chaviva Ikol Bei Mehula. Mehula means a moel, meaning a mila. He went to a sudas mila, ubarach, and he recited the bracha in the zimun of Chasimcha B'mona. That even though, or shall we say, because of the simcha of mila, reminds of the Rashba's tshuva that we do say Shachiano in a mila. So the Gemara says, "V'les hilchos kava." So we don't make a bracha of chasim kamono at a bris milah. Mishum the treaty the islate Sarah dini yinu. The baby is suffering, and they're tarud machmas tzara latino, and therefore simcha is not shlema. They cannot be mavarach shasimcha b'mona. Omer Rav Nachman Omer Rav Chasonim min aminyan. The chasan himself, if you have 9 other people, is going to make the minyan. But with regard to the minyan of Asara, we cannot be mitzaref the ovel. And the Gemara is going to explain this. Meisvei, Gemara has a kash on Rav from the following brisa, Chasonim v'avelim min minyan. So you see explicitly that the ovel is mitzaref l'Asara. The Gemara answers, Masnisa karamis alei de Rav. You're asking a kasha on Rav from a brisa. Rav Tanu Polik. Can't ask a kasha on Rav from a brisa. Itmar Omer Rab Yitzchak Omer Rab Yochanan Chasonim min aminyan Ein Avelim min aminyan. Meisvei, where it's a kasha on Rab Yochanan Chasonim v'Avelim min aminyan. We have a brisa that explicitly paskins that Avelim are part of the minyan. How could Rab Yochanan say that the Avelim are not part of the minyan against this brisa? And we can't say that Rabbi Yochanan could argue against the brisa. Now we turn to Daf Ches Amud Beis. Ki Tanya Ahi v'Birkas Hamazon Ki Kom Rabbi Yochanan b'Shura.